You will be surprised, but some familiar vegetables that we store in the refrigerator for years and consider symbols of healthy eating can actually accelerate aging, damage blood vessels, and undermine heart health faster than sugar or fat. Yes, we are talking about those vegetables that we have come to consider healthy. The most alarming thing is that after 60 years, our body becomes less forgiving of mistakes that previously posed no issues. I observe this every day. Patients come to me and assure, "Doctor, I eat properly. Vegetables, cereals, nothing fatty." However, the test results say otherwise. Inflammation, high sugar levels, cholesterol, weak vessels, and overall weakness. Why does this happen? The fact is that not all vegetables are equal. After 60, they can become the fine line between health and illness, between a lively morning and shortness of breath after climbing stairs. When I first started monitoring my patients' diets, I thought it was all about counting calories and salt. But over time, I realized that the main enemy is not what is on the plate, but the misunderstanding of how a mature body works. After 60 years, digestion, metabolism, and sensitivity to sugar undergo significant changes. What was once beneficial can now cause harm. Conversely, simple foods that were considered modest suddenly become elixirs of longevity. I will say directly, there are 3 vegetables that slowly ruin an elderly person year by year, destroying joints, undermining the heart, and causing inflammation. And there are 3 others that, on the contrary, prolong life, strengthen vessels, purify blood, support the brain, and even restore lost energy with age. I will tell you more about this, but only at the end will you find out which of these 6 vegetables is the most dangerous. Many will be shocked as this vegetable ends up in their healthy salad every day. But let's start not with names, but with essence. To understand why one vegetable is beneficial and another harmful, one must look deeper into how the body changes after 60. This is an important aspect that many ignore. A mature organism resembles an old but reliable machine. It requires different fuel, careful tuning, and respect for its inner rhythms. After 60 years, the number of enzymes decreases, gastric juice production declines, and intestinal microflora weakens. This means that some plant substances, which were previously easily digested, can now cause fermentation, inflammation, and sugar spikes. For example, you might sometimes feel heaviness after a light salad or bloating, even though you seemingly ate nothing harmful. This is not an accident, but a signal. The body can no longer cope with what was once perceived as normal. That is why we, the doctors, are re-evaluating old habits today. We do not just exclude fatty or salty foods, but analyze how each product affects metabolism specifically at the age of over 60. Agree, it's amazing. Some people at 70 look energetic, move actively, get into their cars, and drive to their dasha, while others are already tired from their morning shower. The difference often lies not in genes, but in small details, daily decisions, and what ends up on their plates. Let me give an example. Recently, a 67-year-old man who used to work as an engineer approached me. "I eat properly, doctor. I consume vegetables every day," he reported. I looked at his tests and saw that the inflammatory markers were off the charts. They began to investigate the situation and found that he was eating a rather popular vegetable daily, which can cause a sharp increase in uric acid levels and microinflammation of the vessels in elderly people. After 2 months without him, the indicators improved significantly, the joints stopped bothering, and the addition of another simple and inexpensive vegetable allowed for reduced blood pressure without the use of pills. That's why I always emphasize age is not the cause of problems, but a lack of knowledge. When you understand how the body functions, you can not only live to 80, but also live with a clear mind, strong legs, and a light heart. There is an important nuance. As we age, the body becomes more emotional. It reacts not only to the number of calories, but also to the very energy of food. How calm she is, how smart she is. Some foods amplify internal worries, inflammation, irritability, anxiety. Others, on the contrary, give a feeling of lightness, purity, and inner balance. That is why I call the right vegetables therapy without pills. Some may say, "What about vegetables? I've eaten the same thing my whole life." But the body is not eternal. After 6 in the evening, every cell seems to wait for support. The question is not how long you will live, but how you will age. You can face old age with difficulty, or you can do so calmly, maintaining clarity of mind and a desire to live. And this is not a miracle. but biology. So I want you to watch this video until the end. In the finale, you will understand why some vegetables considered beneficial can actually accelerate the wear of blood vessels and joints, while others, on the contrary, can initiate recovery processes. I will talk not only about 3 vegetables to avoid, but also about those that prolong life, and explain why this happens. Without complicated terms, just facts and observations confirmed by research and my experience. And now I ask you to do one simple action. Evaluate your diet and mentally note which vegetables you eat most often. Don't rush to change your habits. Just think about it, because in the next part we will discuss the first element that triggers the process of internal aging, quietly, unnoticed, but ruthlessly. If you have ever experienced fatigue without an obvious reason, joint dryness or heaviness after eating, don't miss this moment. Everything will start to come together in a clear picture. And in the end, I will tell you about something that may be unknown even to many doctors. Which vegetable accelerates brain aging and why it is especially dangerous for those who eat it for preventive purposes. So, if you want to learn how to extend life without strict diets and expensive medications, stay with me. The most important will follow. When I spoke about aging, often starting from our plate, some smiled. It's a pity, because the first vegetable I promised to discuss is the one that worries me the most when studying my patients' food diaries. It is the potato. Familiar, native, warm, from childhood. Mashed potatoes, fried, in soup, in their jackets. What could be wrong with it? It becomes the unnoticed catalyst for what we call inflammatory aging. Let me clarify, potatoes are not poison. However, for a mature body, especially after 60, it becomes a product with unexpected consequences. It contains a lot of starch, which turns into glucose in the body as quickly as sugar. Yes, a spoonful of mashed potatoes affects blood sugar levels almost the same as a spoonful of sugar in tea. And when I share this information with patients, many of them do not believe it until they see specific numbers. After a plate of potatoes, the glucose level sharply rises, the pancreas releases insulin, and the blood vessels constrict. If this situation repeats daily, the vessels begin to become fragile, like old rubber. Now imagine that in such a state they must provide blood supply to the brain, heart, and joints against the backdrop of the natural decrease in vessel elasticity observed in everyone after 60. As a result, pressure spikes, swollen legs, joint pain, memory deterioration, and the person wonders, why? I haven't eaten sweets. Here is an example from practice. A 72-year-old woman, neat and disciplined, has worked as an accountant her whole life. She ate impeccably, no pastries, sausages, or fried food. But for dinner 3 times a week, she allowed herself a little potato. We excluded potatoes for a whole month, replacing them with cauliflower and broccoli. Result: the swelling disappeared. The sugar level dropped from 68 to 54. The joints stopped hurting. After 2 months, she admitted, I started moving easier, as if there was less sand inside me. Here is the answer. The problem lies not only in glucose. With age, the activity of enzymes that break down starch decreases. Residues of undigested food become a breeding ground for harmful bacteria in the intestines, which in turn release toxins that irritate the intestinal walls and enter the bloodstream. And a chain reaction begins. Microinflammations, swelling, pain, fatigue. A person thinks they are just aging, but in reality, they are overloading themselves with what their body can no longer digest. Now add to this frying in oil, an appetizing golden crust, and brown slices. At temperatures above 120 degrees Celsius, starch forms acrylamide, a substance classified as potentially carcinogenic by the World Health Organization. How many people over 60 eat fried potatoes to lift their spirits and then wonder why their liver tests and sugar levels worsen? Do you know what is most insidious? Potatoes are addictive. The brain reacts to a sudden spike in sugar by releasing dopamine, the pleasure hormone. This is why elderly people find it so hard to give up fried potatoes. It's not the stomach that craves, but the brain that asks for another portion of pleasure. It resembles addiction, only socially acceptable. What to do? Is it necessary to completely remove potatoes? Not necessarily, but for people over 60, there is a simple rule. Potatoes should not be a daily product. Once a week at most. And also choose young potatoes that have not been stored for long. In old tubers, solanine accumulates, a toxin that in large doses can cause weakness, nausea, and headaches. Cook potatoes with their skins. This way they will have a lower glycemic index. Avoid using greenish tubers and try to combine potatoes with fiber, greens, cabbage, and beans. These foods slow down sugar absorption and reduce potential harm. Now perform a simple action. Tomorrow replace potatoes with baked cauliflower or a small piece of pumpkin. Give yourself time, at least 7 days. You will notice it will become easier, swelling will decrease, and your mood will improve. Many of my patients noted changes as early as the 3rd day. Potatoes are not the enemy if approached with understanding. However, a mature body needs energy without overload. The essence is not to refuse potatoes, but to rid oneself of pain. Another observation: as soon as a person reduces starch intake, their sleep improves. This is not a coincidence. High sugar levels in the evening interfere with melatonin production, the hormone responsible for sleep. Therefore, if you have trouble falling asleep, consider what you had for dinner. Do you see how everything is interconnected? One seemingly harmless vegetable can trigger a whole chain of problems. But as soon as we eliminate it from our diet, the body begins to recover. And this is just the first step. The next vegetable acts even more subtly. It does not raise blood sugar but can damage joints, dry out ligaments, and provoke chronic pain, especially in those who prefer light vegetable dishes. He is rarely talked about openly, as he is considered dietary. But in reality, he often becomes the hidden cause of morning stiffness and knee pain. We will discuss this in the next part. If you have already realized that this topic is important to you, don't forget to support us. Every reaction of yours helps convey useful information to those suffering from ignorance. When we exclude potatoes from our site, it becomes clear. It's not just about one product. Aging is not a one-time event, but a process fueled by many small things. One of these factors is a vegetable that, strangely enough, often ends up on the plate of those who care about their joints. It is the tomato. Yes, this juicy and fragrant product, a symbol of summer and healthy eating. It is rich in vitamins, lycopene, and fiber. Everything seems perfect, but for people over 60, it can cause chronic joint inflammation and pain that is hard to explain with ordinary tests. Let's analyze without panic, relying on facts. Tomatoes belong to the nightshade family, just like potatoes, eggplants, and peppers. All nightshades contain alkaloids like solanine and tomatine. For a young body, this poses no danger. Liver enzymes quickly neutralize them. However, after 60, the detoxification system's activity decreases. The liver works slower, and enzymes are produced in smaller amounts. As a result, decay products accumulate, intensifying inflammation in the tissues, especially in the joints. People with arthritis, arthrosis, and gout often notice that after consuming a healthy salad with tomatoes, their joints feel heavy. This is not a coincidence. Tomatine irritates the synovial membrane, the thin tissue that lines the joint from the inside. In response, inflammation begins. And now the familiar morning stiffness, tight fingers, and pain upon rising. An example from practice. A 64-year-old man, a former athlete who followed a healthy diet and active lifestyle, suffered torment in his knees every morning. All tests were normal, and the X-ray showed no abnormalities. We decided to find out if it was related to his diet. It turned out he ate a salad of tomatoes and cucumbers almost every day, sometimes even twice a day. We excluded tomatoes for a month, and the result surprised even him. The pain disappeared, the joints stopped clicking, and movement became light. A week later, he confessed, "I never thought food could affect the body like this." Of course, not everyone has such reactions to tomatoes, but it happens especially often in people over 60. Why does this happen? With age, the permeability of the intestinal walls increases. Normally, the intestine functions as a filter, allowing beneficial substances to pass while retaining toxins. However, during inflammation, fragments of plant proteins enter the bloodstream, which the immune system perceives as a threat. She begins to attack her own tissues, leading to autoimmune reactions affecting the joints, skin, and blood vessels. Tomatoes, especially unripe ones, contain more solanine, so if you decide to eat them, choose only ripe, soft fruits with thin skin. Avoid green tomatoes and excessive consumption of tomato paste, as it has a higher concentration of these substances. Another common mistake is to combine tomatoes with meat or cheese, as proteins aid in the absorption of alkaloids. Thus, the classic salad with tomatoes and cheese becomes not beneficial, but a burden for the liver and joints. However, I am not in favor of bans, but advocate for a conscious approach. If you like tomatoes, pay close attention to your condition. If after eating you feel heaviness, drowsiness, or aches, it is not the weather, but a biochemical reaction of the body. It is as if it says, I feel heavy. Hear it. There is a simple experiment. For 2 weeks, remove tomatoes from your diet, changing nothing else, and then add them again, for example, for 1 or 2 days in a row. If after a day you feel a return of pain or swelling, the body honestly responds, it's simple, this doesn't suit me. This is not a diet, but a diagnosis through sensations, which often turns out to be more accurate than tests. Why do I pay so much attention to this? Because after 60, any inflammation accelerates the aging of the entire body. Inflammation affects not only the joints, but also the brain, blood vessels, and skin. It steals energy, making you tired and irritable. But once the source is removed, it's as if you awaken. This is what I call real prevention. Not pills, but the ability to listen to your body. Try this today. Exclude tomatoes from dinner, and tomorrow morning, pay attention to your joints, face, and overall condition. Sometimes, lightness is felt literally within a day. And another important point, tomatoes contain acid that can irritate the stomach lining. In elderly people, the lining often thins, especially with gastritis or medication use. Frequent consumption of tomatoes can lead to heartburn, heaviness in the stomach, and even microinflammations of the mucous membrane. This happens unnoticed, but it affects the entire metabolism. I always say that if a product is considered beneficial for everyone, it is likely not beneficial for anyone. For a mature body, individual reaction is much more important than general opinion. Therefore, when you hear recommendations like, increase your vegetable intake, clarify which specific vegetables are being referred to, as they can vary greatly. Some contribute to longevity, while others may drain your energy. Nevertheless, one cannot overlook the positive side of tomatoes. Cooked or stewed tomatoes contain lycopene, an antioxidant that protects blood vessels and skin, but only if consumed in small amounts and no more than twice a week. It all depends on the dose. Excess can turn benefit into harm, especially for people with weak joints. Discover the simple truth. Sometimes less means better. Try replacing tomatoes with baked bell peppers or carrots for a week, and you will be surprised how much your well-being changes. Each of my patients who underwent this experiment said the same thing. Doctor, I feel lighter, less irritable, and sleep better. This is the first sign that the inflammation is going away. Nevertheless, while tomatoes are relatively clear, there is another vegetable that is much more dangerous. It does not raise blood sugar levels and does not irritate the stomach, but it acts unnoticed, accumulates in the body, and over time begins to destroy the walls of blood vessels, accelerating brain aging. This vegetable is considered dietary and is often recommended for high blood pressure and weight loss, but it often causes anemia, weakness, and dizziness in elderly people. It will be discussed in the next part. If you feel that you are truly beginning to understand how your body functions, do not let go of that understanding. The most important things are ahead. You probably already realize that everything is not as simple as it seemed at first glance. It is not about prohibitions, but about understanding. When a person realizes why their body reacts in a certain way, they gain respect for themselves. They stop feeding their body out of habit and begin to do so consciously. And now we have approached the third, most treacherous vegetable, which many consider almost a salvation for high blood pressure and excess weight. We will talk about eggplants. At first glance, they look perfect, low in calories, rich in fiber, and with a beautiful shiny skin. However, for a mature organism, eggplant can sometimes be the product that slowly but surely destroys blood vessels and depletes energy. Why does this happen? Firstly, it is due to the solanaceous alkaloids, which are particularly abundant in eggplants. Among them are salanin and its derivatives, which with regular consumption can cause irritation of mucous membranes and disrupt mineral metabolism. When I share this information with patients, they often express surprise. Doctor, aren't eggplants considered a diet food? Yes, but that is only true for a young and healthy body. In people over 60, they can exacerbate inflammation of the vessel walls, hinder iron absorption, and cause anemia, leading to hidden oxygen deficiency in tissues. It all starts with small things: fatigue, dizziness, cold fingers, slow recovery after sleep. The tests seemed fine, but the hemoglobin level was at the lower limit, and no one connected this to vegetables. In reality, the cause often lies in the excess of nightshades, especially fried eggplants. The fact is that during cooking, eggplants absorb oil like a sponge. One serving of fried circles can contain as much fat as a piece of cake. If fried in sunflower or refined oil, a huge amount of oxidants enters the body, damaging blood vessels and accelerating brain cell aging. That is why people who often eat fried eggplants often complain of forgetfulness, lethargy, and fatigue. Here is a story from practice. A 68-year-old woman, active and well-groomed, has recently begun to feel a fog in her head, drowsiness, dizziness, and her blood pressure has become erratic. According to her, her diet has been perfect: vegetables, no meat, light dishes. However, when I looked into her food diary, I saw that eggplants were present almost every day, fried, baked, as caviar, or rolls with garlic. After 3 weeks without eggplants and fried oil, the dizziness disappeared, memory improved, and blood pressure normalized. They simply removed the product that the body could no longer digest. The next point is oxalic acid. It is found in many vegetables, but especially in eggplants. With age, the kidneys lose the ability to quickly eliminate salt from oxalic acid. This can lead to the formation of crystals, sand, and stones. Therefore, if a person over 60 has joint pain but their uric acid tests are normal, I always ask, do you often eat eggplants? In 9 out of 10 cases, I hear in response, yes, I eat them often. This is not a coincidence, but a regularity. The third point is iron. Eggplants contain substances that bind iron and hinder its absorption. And iron is not only hemoglobin but also energy, brain function, and mood. Without it, the nervous system's functioning is disrupted. Therefore, elderly people suffering from constant weakness, apathy, and poor sleep often do not realize that the issue is not only age, but also a hidden iron deficiency, exacerbated by a habit of vegetable diets. By the way, many grandmothers and grandfathers proudly claim, I haven't eaten meat for a long time, only vegetables and grains. I feel light. Yes, but lightness is not always equivalent to health. Sometimes it is a sign of energy depletion. The body seems clean but lacks the strength for recovery. Without iron and protein, tissues age faster, skin becomes dull, and muscles weaken. What to do if you love eggplants? Don't immediately give them up. Just change the cooking method. Instead of frying, bake them whole in the oven. Remove the flesh, discarding the skin that contains the highest amount of solanine. Be sure to combine eggplants with iron-rich foods like lentils, buckwheat, or lean meat. This way, you reduce harm and preserve flavor. And the main rule: do not consume eggplants more than once a week. The body needs time to eliminate the remnants of alkaloids. Try replacing them with zucchini, which contains significantly fewer irritating substances. Increasing fiber and potassium intake, which helps improve heart function, can have a significant impact on health. Many of my patients note that after just a week, their skin looks fresher, their blood pressure stabilizes, and they feel a sense of lightness in their bodies. It is important to remember that the process of aging does not happen suddenly. It creeps in unnoticed through familiar dishes and seemingly harmless products. When you start to eliminate these quiet irritants, your body begins to thank you almost instantly. There is one interesting nuance. When a person stops filling their diet with harmful vegetables, their mood unexpectedly improves, irritability disappears, and calmness takes its place. Why does this happen? Inflammation affects not only the joints, but also the chemistry of the brain. By reducing inflammation, we promote an increase in serotonin levels, the happiness hormone. You start to smile more often for no particular reason. This is not magic, but biochemistry, without the use of pills. Now that we have dealt with the 3 vegetables that subtly contribute to aging, potatoes, tomatoes, and eggplants, it's time to turn our attention to the other side of the coin. There are vegetables that act completely oppositely. They cleanse the vessels, protect the brain, support hormonal balance, and restore energy to the body. These are not exotic superfoods, but simple, accessible products that can be found in any store. In my opinion, it is precisely these that make an adult truly active and alive. Let's start with the vegetable that activates the processes of restoring blood vessels and the brain, even if you have long felt a decline in strength. When you remove what is harmful from your diet, you make room for what restores. And here begins the most interesting part. The body, free from irritants, starts to literally absorb benefits. Sometimes I feel that the body after 60 resembles dry land that needs the right moisture for life to return. The first longevity vegetable I want to talk about is beetroot. Yes, this is simple old kindness that many underestimate, thinking of it as ordinary food. But that's a mistake. It has a unique set of properties that help a mature body function smoothly and without strain. Let's start with the most important. Beets cleanse the vessels and nourish the brain. It contains natural nitrates that convert to nitric oxide in the body, a molecule that helps dilate blood vessels. For people over 60, this is a real salvation. Nitric oxide improves circulation, lowers blood pressure, relieves spasms, and enriches the heart and brain with oxygen. It is not a supplement or a pill, but natural biochemistry available to everyone. One of my patients, who turned 71 and had previously worked as a teacher, suffered for a long time from dizziness and heaviness in his head. The pills helped only partially. We added boiled beets and a little fresh juice to his diet, just 100 milliliters each morning every other day. 3 weeks later, he called me and said, "Doctor, for the first time in a long time, I woke up with a clear head, and it's not a coincidence." Research shows that elderly people who regularly include beets in their diet experience improved memory and concentration. This happens because the brain vessels start to function more efficiently, but the benefits of beets do not end there. This vegetable is one of the few that helps maintain liver health. After 60 years, the liver becomes the main filter that fights aging, processing medicines, hormones, toxins, and products of inflammatory processes. When the liver is overloaded, a person begins to feel sluggish, irritable, and heavy in the body. Beetroot contains betaine, a substance that activates liver cleansing processes, improves bile flow, and helps eliminate excess cholesterol from the body. Many patients note that consuming beets 3 to 4 times a week makes their skin lighter, eyes clearer, and overall condition better. This is not just a cosmetic effect, but a restoration of normal metabolism. Additionally, beets have the amazing property of cleansing the intestines. In mature age, the intestines may work less actively, the amount of fiber in the diet decreases, physical activity declines, and medications negatively affect the microflora. Beets act gently, like a natural brush, without causing irritation. It not only cleanses but also nourishes beneficial bacteria that produce serotonin and B vitamins. Therefore, people who regularly consume beets become calmer, and their sleep and mood normalize. A warm dish of boiled beets with a spoonful of cold-pressed vegetable oil, like flaxseed oil, enhances the absorption of carotenoids and vitamin E, while beets improve peristalsis, making it an ideal dinner for those wanting to wake up without heaviness and swelling. However, it is important to remember moderation. Freshly squeezed beet juice is a powerful remedy that should not be consumed in large quantities. 50 to 100 milliliters, diluted with water, is sufficient, and only after meals. People with low blood pressure or prone to dizziness are better off eating boiled or baked beets. Interestingly, ancient medical figures like Hippocrates and Avicenna used beets to treat anemia and general weakness. They noticed that after consuming this vegetable, a person's complexion improves, warmth in the body appears, and clarity of mind follows. Modern research confirms the high content of folic acid and iron in beets, which indeed contributes to better blood condition. Try a simple exercise. Tomorrow morning, eat a small portion of warm beetroot with a spoonful of oil and a piece of whole grain bread. Observe yourself throughout the day. After a few hours, you will feel light, as if an inner movement has started. This is not just suggestion, but the result of nitric oxide action, which saturates cells with oxygen. Now imagine if you give your body such a stimulus 3 to 4 times a week, how your condition will change in a month. Gradually, blood pressure, skin condition, sleep quality, and mood will improve. Beetroot is not magic. It is a reminder of how important it is to take care of your body with simple and healthy foods. There is another important feature. Beets help restore the acid-base balance of the blood, especially for those who abuse meat or carbohydrates. Thus, it smooths out the consequences of past dietary mistakes. I often tell my patients, don't look for an elixir in jars. He grows in the garden. If I had to choose only one vegetable to maintain blood vessels after 60, I would choose beets. However, beets are not the only vegetable worth including in the diet. There is another that affects the body on a different level. It helps reduce inflammatory processes and protects the skin from aging from within. This vegetable positively affects the joints, makes the face fresher, and promotes hormonal balance in women. Many perceive it as just a side dish, but in mature age, it becomes almost a true medicine. I will tell you about it in the next part, and if you have already decided to add beetroot to your diet, don't delay. Start right now. This will be your first step towards renewal. If you feel that such topics are important to you, support this video. Let it reach those who are seeking knowledge, not pills. When the body begins to cleanse itself and the vessels come to life, thanks to beets, it's time to think about how to strengthen the foundation. The joints, skin, ligaments, everything that makes us not just alive, but also mobile, flexible, and youthful. And here comes to the forefront a vegetable that is often underestimated, considered a boring side dish or cottage food. In reality, it is a powerful remedy against inflammation, aging, and fragility. It is about cabbage, simple, familiar since childhood, but with amazing biochemical properties. Cabbage is a natural, anti-inflammatory barrier. It contains unique substances, glucosinolates, which are converted in the body into isothiocyanates. These compounds effectively combat inflammation, cleanse cells of toxins, and protect DNA from damage. Simply put, cabbage helps cells function normally without suffering from oxidative stress. This is especially important for people over 60, as chronic inflammation steals youth from within, leading to joint stiffness, loss of skin elasticity, as well as lethargy, drowsiness, and irritability. Regular consumption of cabbage acts as a quiet antiseptic for the entire body. I remember one of my patients who was 66 years old. She had arthritis, swollen knees, insomnia, and dull skin. The pills provided only temporary relief. We didn't introduce anything extraordinary, just added cabbage to her diet 3 times a week, stewed, fresh, and fermented. A month later, she came to my office with a smile. Doctor, for the first time in a long while, I was able to walk to the bus without pain. My skin has turned pink, my blood pressure is normal, and my sleep has improved. This is how simple biochemistry works. Not magic, but feeding cells what they lacked. It is important to understand that cabbage is not just fiber. It is rich in vitamin K, which is necessary for strong bones and normal blood clotting. It also contains vitamin U, a rare component that aids in the restoration of the stomach lining. That is why fermented or stewed cabbage often improves digestion in people suffering from gastritis for many years. Moreover, cabbage contains sulfur, an element of youth. She participates in the synthesis of collagen and keratin, which in turn supports the health of joints, skin, and hair. Sulfur-containing compounds make cabbage a powerful anti-aging remedy. With regular consumption of cabbage, the skin becomes firmer, joints more elastic, and nails stronger. Many people say, "Doctor, cabbage causes gas." Yes, it's possible, especially if the intestines are weak. Therefore, you should start with small portions, just 2 or 3 spoons, but do this every day. After a couple of weeks, the microflora will adapt, and cabbage will stop causing discomfort. On the contrary, it will start to support beneficial bacteria that are responsible for immunity and good mood. Pay special attention to sauerkraut. Not store-bought, not oversalted, but homemade, without vinegar. This living product is rich in lactic acid bacteria, which restore the microflora, reduce inflammation, and promote the absorption of calcium and iron. For a mature organism, this cabbage is a true internal therapy. It improves digestion, lowers cholesterol levels, and strengthens the immune system. However, it is important not to overdo it. It is best to consume sauerkraut in the first half of the day, 2 or 3 tablespoons, avoiding evening intake to prevent fluid retention. If there is a tendency towards high blood pressure, rinse the cabbage before eating to remove excess salt. I recommend my patients over 60 a simple ritual to eat at least a small portion of cabbage every day, in any form, fresh, stewed, baked, or pickled. After 2 or 3 weeks, you will notice how your body feels lighter, your joints move more freely, your skin feels warmer, and your mood becomes more stable. This is the effect of reduced inflammation, which cannot always be measured by tests, but is felt by every cell. Cabbage is especially beneficial for women of mature age as it helps regulate estrogen levels, reducing the risk of hormonal fluctuations and hot flashes. For men, it offers other advantages: clean vessels, improved potency, and clarity of mind. Yes, clarity. The brain demands calm blood free of toxins. Interestingly, in Japan, where life expectancy is one of the highest in the world, cabbage is an essential part of the diet of the elderly. It is considered a longevity vegetable, and they say, "He who eats cabbage every day does not need a doctor." This is not just a proverb, but an observation passed down from generation to generation. Try a small exercise. Tonight, take some cabbage, lightly saute it with carrots, and add a spoonful of olive oil. Eat slowly, without haste. After an hour, listen to your body. Feel the lightness and calm warmth. It's not just fullness, it's a signal. This is right for me. And the body after 60, like a wise companion, will guide you with everything you need. And you know what's surprising? When a person starts to eat cabbage regularly, their craving for sweets decreases. This is also related to biochemistry. Inflammation decreases, blood sugar levels stabilize, and the brain stops craving quick rewards. A steady, calm pleasure from food arises without sharp spikes and feelings of guilt. But cabbage has one true companion that it works in tandem with. This is the third longevity vegetable that nourishes the blood, strengthens the immune system, enhances brain function, and completes the recovery cycle. It seems to finalize the entire process: cleanse, nourish, and harmonize. Without this partner, the whole longevity system remains incomplete. We will talk about him in the next final part, and believe me, in it you will learn the main secret of how 3 simple vegetables can not only prolong life, but also restore interest in it. When the vessels are cleansed, the joints calm down, and the skin begins to breathe, the final step remains: to nourish the blood, brain, and heart. Without internal nourishment, no cleansing will yield lasting results. And here enters the third vegetable that promotes longevity: the carrot. Yes, it is a simple and familiar product, lacking trendy attributes, but it completes the entire recovery process. Carrots are a source of carotenoids, from which the body produces vitamin A. This vitamin is needed not only for vision, as many believe. He plays a key role in cell renewal, maintaining the immune system, skin and mucous membrane health, and is important for transmitting nerve impulses in the brain. With age, after 60 years, the production of vitamin A from food slows down. Cells age faster, mucous membranes dry out, vision deteriorates, and memory loses clarity. It is then that carrots become not just a side dish, but a true medicine, as if filling the blood with a soft light. Regular consumption of carrots warms the skin, gives a rosy glow, and makes the gaze more lively. This is not just a cosmetic effect, but a return of the inner fire and vitality we call the will to live. One of my patients, who turned 74 years old, complained of weakness, dry skin, and forgetfulness. The medications had only a slight effect. I suggested he simply add grated carrots with a drop of oil every morning and some stewed cabbage for dinner. 3 weeks later, he came with a smile and said, "Doctor, I wake up feeling like I want to do something. I don't force myself. I just want to." This is the action of natural vitamin A. It stimulates the production of dopamine and serotonin, which in turn improves mood, memory, and motivation. But carrots are valuable not only for this, they are also excellent blood purifiers. Her pigments and antioxidants protect red blood cells from oxidative processes, prolonging their life. This means that each cell receives more oxygen. When the blood is clean, the brain functions better, the heart works more calmly, and the skin glows with health. Moreover, carrots are rich in potassium and magnesium, which help maintain normal pressure, prevent cramps, and improve heart function. However, the most important thing is that carrots act gently. They do not cause sharp spikes in sugar, do not irritate the stomach, and do not overload the liver. This is a rare combination for a mature body, where almost everything needs to be controlled. There are, of course, nuances. Carrots are better absorbed with oil, so always add a few drops of flaxseed, olive, or even simple unrefined sunflower oil. To enhance the effect, you can lightly saute carrots over low heat. The warmth makes carotenoids more accessible. Another point that is rarely mentioned: carrots are food for the brain. They contain substances that protect neurons from inflammation caused by stress and aging. Therefore, those who regularly consume carrots suffer less from dementia. Studies show that even small portions of vegetables, from 100 to 150 grams a day, can reduce the risk of cognitive impairments by 20 to 30%. It seems like a trivial detail, but in reality, it represents years of life with a clear mind. Carrots are remarkable in that they connect all the aspects we discussed earlier. Beets cleanse the vessels, cabbage helps reduce inflammation, and carrots nourish the cells. Together, they create harmony, cleansing, protection, and nourishment. This trio represents not just a set of products, but a whole longevity program without the use of medicines. Try a simple morning exercise. Every morning, add a small portion of grated carrots with a spoonful of oil. Twice a week, prepare baked carrots with herbs. Once a week, make a salad with 3 healthy ingredients: beets, cabbage, and carrots. All components should be raw, with a little oil and lemon juice added. After a month, you will notice that your face looks fresher, your blood pressure becomes more stable, your joints more flexible, and your mood more stable. This is not magic, it is the body returning to its natural state. I am often told, "Doctor, we used to eat these vegetables." Yes, we ate. But before it happened unconsciously, and now it is important to approach this process consciously, understanding why it is necessary. The meaning is not only in the food, but also in the attitude towards it. When you eat with gratitude, your body reacts differently. It stops resisting and begins to heal. Do you know what amazed me about the older generation? When they realize that much can still be changed, their eyes become different, alive, bright, and calm. I have observed this many times. Just remove 3 harmful products and add 3 beneficial ones, and a person seems to return to themselves. Not only externally, but also internally. They gain silence, confidence, and clarity. Because aging is not a sentence, but a reversible program. The body strives for life. We just need to stop hindering it. Let's remind ourselves of a simple formula. 3 products that take away life: potatoes, tomatoes, and eggplants belonging to the nightshade family cause inflammation and wear out the vessels. And 3 that prolong life: beetroot, cabbage, and carrots. They cleanse, restore, and nourish. No miracles, just understanding and respect for biology. But the main secret lies not only in the vegetables, but in how you treat yourself. If you start your day by taking care of yourself, with a warm look in the mirror and a plate of good food, your body responds with gratitude. It stops hurting for no reason. So don't think about the years. Focus on the quality of your mornings. Add some beetroot, cabbage, and carrots to your breakfast, and give your body a chance to be your ally rather than a battleground. Let a calm strength live within you. Youth is not a date in a passport, but the ability to rejoice. If anything you heard resonated even a little, give it a try. Not for fashion or experimentation, but for myself. In a week, you will feel the difference. In a month, it will be obvious to you. And in a year, you will say, "I do not just exist. I live in a body that thanks me every day." Let every meal be your medicine, and each day a step towards longevity, full of taste, energy, and inner clarity.